Alright, guys, after Robert Tonyan fully recovers from this ACL tear, I believe he's going to be a top 20 tight end in the Green Bay Packers offense. The reason for that is when you look at him, at least the year that he was popping off in 2020, this guy was unstoppable, and Rodgers absolutely loved him.
He did.
Another reason why I think he's going to be productive is when you look at people that Rodgers is used to and accustomed to when it comes to playing in this offense. Though Robert Tonyan tore his ACL week 8 last year, I think he's going to be at least a familiar face out there for Rodgers, and with that, his production is going to skyrocket. Right now, Rodgers is talking about Allen Lazard, who hardly anyone really heard about in the last year, is going to be the wide receiver 1 for this club.
Yep.
And to think that Robert Tonyan, who we all have kind of heard of, at least in the fantasy realm, as being a viable tight end target, I think that Robert Tonyan could definitely be a more viable target down the line, especially once he's healthy. Obviously, when he comes back, it's probably going to be around week 4, week 5 this year, hopefully. But nonetheless, this guy, for the next 10 weeks of your fantasy season, is going to be your tight end 1. So I would recommend picking him up in redraft leagues for sure. What do you have for him?
I like Tonyan, and he had an amazing year a couple years ago within that offense, and he only played about 8 games last season because of injury.
Right.
So he's coming back in. He's going to be a full go, and there's no more Devontae Adams there, which obviously is going to affect his target share. And so I think Tonyan can have some upside. I don't have him as a top 10 tight end.
Okay.
I think top 20 sounds about right.
Right.
One thing that scares me about Robert Tonyan is that as a fantasy player, he's going into his 5th year. He had that great year 2 years ago, back in 2020 with Aaron Rodgers, and that was kind of his breakout.
For sure.
But, I mean, even before then, I think my man had 12 catches. And then last year in 8 games, he only had about 18 catches. Something around those numbers. Had about 200 yards last season, and that kind of scares me because I know that he's talented and I know that he's a good tight end.
Right.
But he's only shown production 1 out of 4 seasons so far.
Yeah, for sure, man. And I mean, don't take that lightly. I mean, like, there's definitely going to be some sort of leniency that you have to have with this guy just because he made a transition from a different position. And honestly, when you look at tight ends, other than Kyle Pitts, who obviously was a world-renowned tight end coming out of college.
One of a kind.
I mean, it takes a couple years for tight ends to not only get comfortable in the position or in their setting there and actually, like, develop, like we've talked about before. They have to learn passing, they got to learn catching, they have to learn pass blocking, they got to learn run blocking all over again in a new scheme. Like, sometimes it just takes a little longer for tight ends to develop. But now that he has obviously learned the position to a decent, clip. Like, this guy had 11 touchdowns in that 2020 season. And then, he only had 2 in the 8 games that he had last year. But I think when you look at his target share, at least through that, he was on track for what he was seeing in that 2020 season. Because through those 8 games, he saw 29 targets. 2020, he saw 59. So I think when you look at it, man, like, he just might have not seen the right targets in the right position. And so maybe he's getting just, like, more yardage rather than touchdowns. Stuff like that. But I think that this guy is going to be able to do it all this next year.
The Packers will have to rely on tight ends, too, with no Devontae there. So
for sure.
I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens on that. I think that Tonyan is a top 20 tight end. But I think he's closer to the bottom of that list than the top.
Thanks for stopping by. If you like what you heard, give us a thumbs up and hit follow below for more tips, tricks, and common advice to help win your fantasy league.